Welcome to Living in the Light. Today we have on our show Joan Carra, psychic medium. Welcome, Joan.
Oh, hi, Mary Amy. I was so lucky to bump into you at the Wainwright House.
I know we ran into each other and we had spoken about having you on and having an interview, and then synchronicity happened and I saw you a few weekends ago and we said, "Look, let's do the interview." So I'm so grateful to have you
Yeah,
here.
timing is everything. A lot of times we put so much pressure. I was so busy, or I had things weren't working out to just give you the time. And I find people do put too much pressure on. I have to do it this way and this time. And then sometimes when you wait a little bit, there's more information that comes about and it just flows. So one of the things I was doing, because I was working on something, and I said, "Oh, I wanted to hand this in weeks ago," and I saw that there was updated information that I would not have had if I sent it out prior. So one of the things I do, as I said, I say, I'm in the right time, at the right place, with the right people, and everything's falling in the right timing. So I don't get that frenzied, you know?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think sometimes we put pressure on ourselves and then we say, wait a second, let's have patience and see what's going to happen. And maybe something will
Mhm.
evolve that couldn't have evolved if we had been rushing. And then we just wait and then it all kind of comes together. Just like you coming here today. And I've known you for a few years now, Joan, and you're a fascinating individual. You're very charming and you have a beautiful, warm personality,
Oh, thank you.
and I know that is part of the reason why you're successful as a psychic medium. And reading up on you, I realized that you were born into, as you say, a metaphysical family. Does that mean that you had family members that were also psychic, and can you share with us what exactly that was
Oh,
like?
yeah. And then I brought my cards too, because I
Ooh.
do a reading for you. My aunt read from half a deck of playing cards. They're not tarot. I believe they're the original tarot. They're playing cards, but she only read from the 9 to the 8s. And in those days, like I work parties, events, you can lecture, you can teach. In those days, she did not have those opportunities. She read for the family and some friends. I remember the day before kindergarten, my mom said, "Joan, um, don't tell the other kids that Aunt Josie reads the cards. It's a family secret." Now, she didn't have to worry about me because I didn't speak. I was one of those kids that was so withdrawn. And I do tell shy kids that I meet up with, I said, "Don't worry. I was like you and I get paid to talk." But it was something you kept hidden. But nowadays, of course, it's more accepted. And it's amazing. I was just at a symposium from a university in Canada about interspecies communications. These are PhDs, and they collect data and they have the scientific method, and they're studying animal communicators. And they also, because it's in Canada all the way out west, they have with the Native American Indian elders who are part of the teaching program. But I was just amazing because when you read some of the papers, it's so dense and technical. But we have to admire that science is looking at us. And I was doing research on that. And, we had Duke University started the Rhine Institute, and they started the paranormal studies. They invented the word ESP, extrasensory perception. And they're now branched off, but that was a whole school about that. So there's always been the science community looking at us. And Edgar Mitchell, the astronaut, I'm a big fan. He did, unbeknownst to NASA, he did a psychic experiment when he was going to the moon. I'll tell you what he did. He had a picture that he telepathically sent to some people on Earth, Earthlings, and they drew it. And when it came back, it was right. It was the picture that he had. And then he had an epiphany in space that we're all one and connected. And he started the Institute of Noetic Sciences, which is a foundation that brings the quantum physicists to study psychics. And they do, again, data driven, things that are like, we're more loose, but they're like, all right, 100 psychics answered this way. Maybe there's something to it. So maybe today, I didn't expect it, but maybe the theme today is at least a little bit of the portion of the show is that there is science backing our work.
Well, from what I understand, there was parts of our government have been learning all about and knowing all about at ESP. In fact, they teach a lot of the military remote viewing.
Yeah, absolutely correct.
They also are very much practicing in the military psychic abilities, and whether it's telepathy or it's one of the clairsenses, they are all trained in that. That's part of it. And I think that when they're, from what I understand, when they're in a territory that in the past, when they were going to shoot something or blow something up, they would send the actual person that would handle that had psychic training.
Wow. Yeah, to get the targets. Yes. Yeah.
The targets. But back to your family. So your aunt,
okay.
One, because I want to just find a little bit more about.
Yeah, I'll give you
when
more.
did you start to say, oh, what is this? Or was it always just what you had and it wasn't?
No, it did develop. No, well, I always watched my aunt, but I wasn't looking to do what she did. My mom would have dreams when someone was going to die. Nobody wants that talent because you go to the funeral twice. You can't do anything to stop it. You can't tell anyone. And sometimes it's a sudden death. They look healthy, so that's not fun. And my dad, he just had the library. I grew up reading Fate magazine, and he had, we had a library of a lot of books, and one of his interests was that. I remember in junior high, I kept feeling like deja vu. When I would look at one of the few times I spoke, I would say, oh, deja vu. I just had this conversation in my dream and it's repeating. I had that for a good year, but then I wasn't looking for the psychic stuff. It was really when age 40, I'm now 70 and I'm proud to admit it. But there was some very, Yale University, again, researching us, saying psychics come from trauma. You either self-medicate, self-destruct, or you self-heal and share it. So a lot of psychics are coming from crisis, emotional crises or physical. And I had just an emotional meltdown, and I just was so like, I'm surrendering. I wanted to change my life. And spiritually, I opened up. And I wasn't expecting to be a psychic, but things started to happen. And then I was reading my friends. I was like, the profession that I wanted was not happening. I was just taking any job. And I was working for some friends, and my friend was a Japanese friend. I worked part-time, and she was bringing a mother and son psychic team to Japan. I have to remember their name. They were kind of legendary. I'm not going to remember it right this second. And I gave her readings, and then my coworker wanted a reading. He was Japanese, and he gave me money, and he said, why don't you go out and do it? I said, are you out of your mind? And he said, get a restaurant. I didn't even know there were psychics in restaurants. And I found a restaurant, a vegetarian restaurant, that in the back it had astrology cafe. I wound up working there, and in came a party agent, and she had parties, and she hired me. My first gig, and it was pretty incredible. To me, it was a lot of beautiful money. It was an hour a day. I had to get to Manhattan and read. It was I have to look it up. It's so 30 years ago. I don't know what, a women's magazine. And I had to go to all these advertising places where they advertising the readings with other psychics. And it was like good pay for 1 hour. And then it snowballed. And then we got in the newspaper. Why, we don't know, but the newspaper was there. And then things snowballed. And I started to use my psychic ability. I was healing myself with Louise Hay books. First, I was like, yeah, I have that book, The Psychics Say, read it. And I wasn't a psychic then, but I was a mess in my head. And then I reread it, but just 3 pages each, and did everything she said. And those things started to, I would transmit what I needed, and things would happen without the stress of banging your head, you know. And I was just stunned. And then I remember, I'll never forget, this was from another book, Creating Money. And it wasn't about investments, it was about thinking. Mm-hmm. And it said, you know, say the check is in the mail. And I did that. I said, I was broke. The check is in the mail and I'm making a deposit. I wasn't a psychic then. And sure enough, now this was incredible to me. I get a letter from a bank that I used when I was working full time 4 years ago. I changed the bank. And it was said, we reviewed our banking and we owe you $450. So the check came in the mail and I made the deposit. And then I said, I got a job, and I got it. And then when I wanted more PR and I started my business as a psychic, I didn't even know I was starting a business. I was just doing it. I remember I knew 2 friends who had their own PR companies, but even with their discount, I said, I can't pay that. And I just did Louise Hay. I said, I lit a candle and I said, I now have free PR publicity. So what happens? I get a call from someone saying, we're doing this new book called Top 100 Psychics in America. And I had a little ad out. We want to interview you. And I was very, very giving. And I said, there's the Queen Psychic Club and stuff like that. And they said, you're only a year out, so we can't give you a big board, but we'll put you in the book because you helped us. I got a phone call a week later with another lady saying, I'm doing a book about the psychic skin neural. I said, yeah, you called me last week. She said, no, I didn't. I said, oh, it's another book. Could you believe it? I just said free PR and I got in 2 books. Now, this is before the internet. You got everything on Google. So the second book, Psychic New York, she put that book in every tourist spot in New York. And I got business from both those books. It was just unbelievable. And I had people say, oh, I'm getting read by every single psychic in the book. And, you know, we had some little meetings or events, so we all met. But it was something where instead of crying, oh, my goodness, how do I do business? When I teach the business side of being a practitioner, I do teach, hey, you're a psychic. You got to transmit, you know. So that helps a lot. And I think if you talk to salespeople who are top salespeople, in a way, they're like psychics where they put an intention out. I have this goal. I'm going to be the top salesperson. I got to sell 500 of these in a week. And they do it. And I'm always amazed because sales isn't my thing. But the people I know, they are so good. They're really good ones. And it's about believing in this intention. And of course, you can do it. But I was just amazed. I got the free PR without paying. So it was something, you know, what do you know? Good old Louise Hay.
Meant to be. It's your meant to be because it's just the flow. And you also have a gift for, like you said, transmitting, which means that you're clear enough that you're putting it out there and then it comes right back to you and you're manifesting it. And that's a huge gift. That's very interesting and extraordinary.
But, you know, it's also in the Bible. I forgot another key for manifesting is in the Bible. It says when you pray for something you want, be in gratitude as though you already had it. Oh, thank you for this great new job. I'm so happy, even though you don't have it. And you get it right away. It's like a light goes off and then you magnetize it and it comes. Yeah, that's another key. So I would teach people that also. But I think you're right about the flow. I think you have a good point.
You do have a good flow. And speaking of your teaching, I know you had mentioned to me a few years ago that you worked in the city at, is it Edward Case? It's that
Yeah,
famous
Edgar Casey Center.
Edgar
Yeah,
Cayce. So can you tell us some of those experiences? Because
sure. Edgar,
that's very well known. He's
yeah,
very well known.
yeah. He's called the Sleeping Prophet, and Edgar Casey Center, New York. They don't have their lease, but they're still viable on the internet. We did a couple of fundraising psychic fairs. They teach on the internet. So, they're still around. The one in New York, they have the one, of course, in Virginia, the headquarters. Um, and, we do miss the spaces of New York because the other place centers closed. But I actually was invited to go. That's always like a nice feeling.
Wow.
I think I was on Facebook. So, it's funny. Facebook, I got 2 invites to work at some places. So I got to give it credit. So I taught there tea leaf readings, animal communications, and something else probably. I also am in their psychic portal. So if you go to Edgar Casey, I don't know what it is, ARE, put Edgar Casey, New York City.
Okay.
ARE, New York City. It's you can book me through them and they'll get a cut as a donation, which because they're they're advertising me. So that's their portal. Also, the healers are there. So that's it. And they always have classes. They have a big year-long psychic development class. I don't teach that, but they certify people. So it's interesting. And then sometimes they had speakers from the Virginia Center come up. Yeah.
You teach
I read Edgar Casey from my dad's library. I read his books young. I have to reread them probably.
And you teach tea leaf readings or you
I
did?
just did that. I didn't teach during COVID. Yeah, it was great. Now my aunt always read coffee grinds. Not the Turkish coffee grinds, just regular coffee grinds. In the old days, we did that percolator kind of coffee. Now it's those little, what is it? Kura? I can't pronounce it. I don't have it, but
the cups that you put in.
Those little cups.
Right.
Yeah, but anyway, we would save our coffee cup grinds when we got older from when my aunt came. And it's something that's a different kind of reading. Like you'll see little pictures that stimulate you. I'm trying to think of what I just saw. Sometimes I like writing it down. Example, if you see a plane, you may say, oh, you're going on a trip. I saw one time was no, that was a poem. What did I saw a whole bunch of things. One time I saw a saxophone and I told the woman, I see a saxophone here. She said, yeah, my uncle used to play saxophone as a kid and now he picked it up again. So with tea leaves, it's a little different. I'll just show them the pictures, but I'm not doing like a big reading like, oh, I see saxophone. That must be, you're going to a saxophone concert. We'll just say it. And I was trained, I studied symbolism when I studied art history and poetry. So it was there for me, like in a training. Some people don't understand that, it's funny, you study all these things in school and you never know what you're going to use, but it's all the same. Like, and I think there's even deeper ways to go with the tea leaf. It's funny. I just review what sometimes you get letters. You get letters and then you'll say the name, letter M, is there a Mary like you, or hearts, love, or broken heart. You could see animals are interesting when you see an animal in a teacup, and then you look up the totem, like, oh, I see a turtle. And then, just to make it more enhanced, you could even look up totem animal tortoise. Like I don't have it all memorized, all the totems, but you could show the client, hey, when you see a symbol like that during your day, you could actually get more information. So that's fun. And also I do a technique where when I was working parties doing tea leaf readings, not everybody wants to drink the whole tea. So I tell them, you could just hold the cup, don't drink the tea, and then I'm going to dump it. I always have an extra bowl to dump excess water, and then we put it upside down. Just from them holding it, I get information. Because it's subtle energies, right?
So psychometry is where you have someone's personal possession, and then you can read something
Wait,
about them.
wait, say this again? Psychometry?
Psychometry, which is when you have a personal item of someone's.
Yes, yes.
Read information. Is that?
I don't do that too often. I used to do it with crystals. One of the reasons I didn't like to do it, because I remember someone told me, you don't want to have them rings, earrings, then you lose. God forbid it gets lost and they think you stole it. So I'll just say, yeah, you can hold the crystal, I'll do it. But I just do the wave. I just do it like this, like, that's interesting. I haven't done that for a long time. I'll just do the wave, like the energy, picking up energy. But one of the things, a friend of mine who's a flower reader, he doesn't like to do the psychometry because what if they bought an antique ring and you're reading it, but it's the story of the previous owner. But that's interesting. I haven't even heard the psychics talk about it. That's an interesting thing you brought up, because I think the newer generation, everybody's just a tarot reader, and I keep telling them, break away, look at other methods. Like the tea leaf reading's a lost art. Very few people I know do it.
Right, I agree. I mean, I think there was someone that I've met in the last 6 months that said they did it. I can't remember who, or maybe a family member did it. Tell me again what this was, the wave. So you get people's energy that way? What are you doing?
Well, I took a year-long energy healing class with, this was a woman who was a former Buddhist nun, and she did shave her head. She was still a Buddhist nun, but she wasn't in the ashram or whatever it is. She had her own method, and then I took Reiki, so my hands are kind of activated. I just do like that's a good question. Let's see if I could do it through the Zoom. Do you or someone near you have a toe problem?
A what?
Bunion toe, the toe. Bunion toe.
It's funny that you're saying that, because I have these. Well, I was a ballerina when I was little, so it doesn't bother me except when I wear certain shoes so I tape my foot up.
Oh, all right. So that makes sense to you. Yeah.
My foot up. But you know what? It's like I'm a runner, so I'm not changing my feet. It's funny that that's what you came up with.
Yeah, that's what I think. I'm glad I could do it through Zoom. You gave me a big wow. Yeah, and then
anything else?
But but the first time I did this, oh my God, was I scared. I was at a restaurant and it was a young girl. I'm never going to pronounce it right. I'm doing this and I see it now. There was no scar in her neck, but I see a tracheotomy. Is that how you say it? The trach. And I was scared to say it because she didn't have it. And I didn't want to predict it. But then I said, because the vision was so strong, I said, do you know someone who had it? And she said, yes, my mother just had it, but she's fine. So I realized, because I couldn't say that to this young girl, I realized I could say, or someone around you. Because I felt it and I saw it, and sometimes I try not to hold back, but occasionally you got to be sensitive, young girl. I'm not going to say you're going to be having this surgery, but she, then I said someone, that's why I even said to you, or someone, about the toes. Yeah.
Anything else you got?
I don't do the, it's funny. A lot of people said, why don't you do more healing work? I just do it for a minute. I'll send laser, but I don't feel that confident to say I'm going to do an hour on you, putting energy. And I don't think I could charge for that, but I just never pursued it as saying I'm an energy healer, because I don't want to say I'm going to cure your cancer. I think I could provide comfort, and maybe with hypnosis, you could do some techniques for shrinking a tumor or something like that. But I think for me, I think I'm cautious with medical. Okay. I always tell people go to the doctor, that because that's what I do, and I don't want to take away, of people saying I don't believe in it. I say, all right, you could do that, but I'm not going to be a doctor because that's a big responsibility as a healer and a psychic. But I've heard stories that some people, their tumor shrunk or this and that. I know when I taught energy healing at the Wainwright House, I still have to this day these clients who I still know, so that when I taught them in my technique, the woman said, when the student put her hand on my shoulder, it stopped hurting. Now I have to get some energy healing because I'm having the shoulder pain and all that stuff. But yeah, that's an interesting to explore. But I'm not going to call myself a master at that. I'm not.
You said zap. You said I do. Is that what you said? I
Oh,
zap.
zapping. Yeah, I just
Is that what
imagine
you're
like a
zapping?
laser beam. A laser beam. All right, I'm going to send a laser beam of energy, love, healing to your foot.
Okay.
Now, I
My
don't know.
foot's
Some people
fine.
say,
Send it
oh,
somewhere else. Send
but
it to
I
anywhere
don't.
else. I don't need it in my foot. No, really, send it.
Oh, all over. Yeah, all right, let's do it. Let's put it all over Amy. And
Mary.
you have a beautiful smile, so certain things are really good. And I feel like you have like a thorn, like a pinchy thing. Does that make sense to you? Or
Uh,
a nerve,
no,
pinched
it's
nerve?
you're actually. It's funny you're saying that. No, it's something else, but it's
You
back.
don't have to say, tell us,
You're
but
right. You're right. I got something right there that comes and goes. Yes, you're right. I'll tell you off camera.
yeah, okay, yeah, because
You're
I
accurate.
always tell
You're accurate.
you
You're
don't have
accurate.
to intrude. So let's put a zapping, and we just want that tightness to relax. And the Buddhist nun told me that she knew a Russian healer who had an interesting technique. When he was sick, he had the flu, whatever, he would put the Reiki energy healing on his pillow and on his bed, and then get in the bed.
Wow. Med bed.
Yeah, med bed. That's
Med bed.
you don't need a crystal bed, just
Just a med bed. I'll have a sip of water as well. Okay, question. Have you ever done a seance? And I'm guessing you have. And what has come through? Because you're a medium as well. So do spirits come to you during a seance? What's a seance like? I've never been to one.
yeah, it's controversial for the word. I used to love calling it a seance, but other people said, that's an old-fashioned word, and it conjures up. No, wait, hold on. It conjures up like they had that ectoplasm, and some of it was fake. So some people told me, don't use it because you're being very, people may think I'm going to do a big drama show. Sometimes I call it that, but it's contacting spirit. But it's the people in the circle. It's their friends and loved ones. It's not strays. Okay. Well, everyone thinks you're gonna get some kind of crazy spirit who lived in your house.
I get
huh?
Every night come to me. I have strays every night.
Spirits?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's not fun. Is it? How do you handle it?
It's been going on for like, I don't know, 8 years now.
Oh,
No, they all do. They all come to me. Like I'll close my eyes and they come to me. It doesn't bother me anymore.
well, that's good. It doesn't bother you. But what do they tell you?
They don't. They just try. It's like they think they know that I can see them, so they try to communicate with me. But like it happens. I don't know, 3 or 4 of them every night.
Oh, wow. I think that's interesting. I wouldn't know what to tell
Some
you on
talk
that.
to me, so I have clairaudience. So some
Yeah.
speak to me as well, and they'll tell me information. Like it's just common. It's not even a weird thing to me anymore, but it was at first. It scared me, and then I just thought, okay, I'm game. But I don't like the voices don't usually go with when I'm seeing them. That's usually separate. Like I'll hear something, and then it's funny because I'll hear it, and then I guess I won't realize all of a sudden it's coming from another source, and then I'll say it out loud, whatever they said to me. But back to you in the seance. Tell me about that.
All right, can I just say something? Maybe you should write some of the things they tell you down.
I do write some of it down.
Oh, good.
I do.
Good.
Some of the time it's actually information, or it's a direction that I'm supposed to be focused on. And I do these, I do these shows every night, or not every night now because of my job in the Matrix, but they sometimes give me topics that I should talk about because I'll hear the same word over and over again. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do that.
So you have your own network in your head.
That's like too. Well,
It's
it's
a
not in my
staff.
head. It's coming from an outside source.
But I'm laughing. You have the whole network staff.
I have
for
so
your
much
network.
going on, I'm so used to it now.
That's amazing to have a staff. Like you, that's helping you.
Oh my God,
You have advisors and a management team.
I do have a
Programming team. That's what I want to call it. You have a programming team.
It's
I
very
love it.
true what you just said. I never thought of it that way, but it is a bunch of advice. I have a lot of advisors. I even have angels that tell me things too. They've been telling me things for years. They've kind of stand back now, and it's like I said, these spirits, or I don't know who they are, but it's interesting that I just realized that most of them are not older. They're younger. They're younger.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
It's not older people. It's not like an old woman or
an old.
it's like younger people that look like anywhere's between a teenager up to maybe 50, not more.
Well, that could even help you with your audience, because I'm working in the city once a week at a New Age crystal and bookshop, and I do it more for fun. I mean, I meet a lot of creative people because it's the East Village, but the young people, the staff, they're so knowledgeable about psychic things, and I'm like, they're 20 years old, and I call one the professor. They're just amazing. So I think you're tapping into the interest of the younger generation. Oh, wow. I think it's fascinating what you're telling me. It'd be funny, like you interview them, but they're invisible. You're like, now on my shows, my counselors.
You know what? Now that we're talking about this, I might just try to adjust my frequency so I can understand if they're trying to communicate. Because most of the communication that I get, it's interesting. When I see them, it's not going to be that I'm hearing them speak to me. It's more of telepathically. The hearing is separate. So I'll hear something but won't see them. So it's very separated. It's divided.
Yeah. Wow.
So when
I'm impressed. I think that's a lovely.
Oh my God, I'm here for you right now, Joan.
All right, we're gonna do me, but
you,
Mary, think of it this way: you don't have to hire a staff. You don't have to do payroll.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. All right. So when you ask me what comes in, I have a lot of interesting things come in with who's coming in. It's oh boy, a lot of times it's tears of joy. I had one situation. Oh, this was interesting. I had a group, and and I always say, we open up, and I turn to a woman and I say, there's a young man who died in a motorcycle crash. She said, no, I don't know. And nobody wanted to claim it. So she wanted her friend who was not there, her young son passed away. So I got him. And then at the end of the session, we're closing up shop, the circle. And I said, I'm sorry, but I can't close it because the man on the motorcycle told me he wants to be acknowledged and I can't go yet. And then the girl that I first questioned about that turned to me and said, actually, that's my brother. But I came here just to get a message for my friend who's in a lot of grief. So she didn't want me to waste time doing him. But he came through anyway, and he still had a message for her. But he understood why she was there. But then I had another one. Someone had, let me just see. She was talking about her daughter's alive, but the daughter, I said, somebody lost a baby, and they were in, a miscarriage. So they were in grief over that. And then I'm looking at this woman. I said, well, tell your daughter. I said, well, she's pregnant and she's pregnant right now. So then the woman went, oh, and she points to her friend who brought her to the group and said, she is pregnant, but I didn't want to tell my friend yet. I blabbed. I told the I got the news out before she was ready to tell it. But that wasn't someone who was dead. That was, well, the spirit of the baby was dead, but the new baby was coming. And then I get, some of these cases, you know, I have it's changing when I now do people, I guess, phrase it very politely, people for their own doing, like suicides, example. Now it changed that when I get the person, even the name, they won't show me how they passed. And a lot of times I know then, oh, it's suicide, they don't want to tell, but I may go privately to the person and say, this is how they did it. But they used to be more blunt about it. And the suicides is interesting. And it's never going to be the way people want me to say, like, oh, I'm sorry I did that. They know they caused you pain, but they always say, you cannot imagine the void I felt. And I felt there was no choice. It's as though life force exits. So I'm not judgmental about it, you know, and nobody should be, because we don't know. It's chemical, it's psychological, who knows? But it's something where they never say, give me my life back. And I think we have to respect that. And sometimes that journey, I think death can be a miracle. You know, people are in a lot of physical pain, emotional pain. And it's a new journey of light and love. And they say in all the books about near-death experiences, they all say it's so beautiful, we don't want to come back. I'm trying to think of other, you know, where's my brain for, there's so many different, I had a funny one. There's a grandmother, she was showing cookies. Now the younger grandmas don't do cookies, she bake cookies, but this was an old time one. And she, I think she said, my grandmother doesn't bake cookies. And then all of a sudden I hear her scream. She goes, oh my God, she used to call me Cookie. That was my nickname. So you see, it's symbols, you know, but it's, I think what I'm trying to say, you don't get the full story all at once. You know, I had a funny one when I first started. I kept showing, sometimes I do a physical movement, you know, I keep seeing them do this, or I don't think you could see it, but I kept putting my foot extended, like putting on the brake. I think that's what I said. I keep seeing your father extending his foot for the brake. And the woman that said, my father was a driver's ed teacher. So it's funny, you could get movements, or you get the foods they're addicted to. I had someone said, he loves his spaghetti. He's a spaghetti holic. And they said, yes, he was. And he even ate spaghetti for breakfast. And sometimes, one time I had to do a long session, it was therapy. Because the woman said she didn't have any good memories of her mother. Now, this goes back a long time ago. I think her mother was an actress in Germany or something, where she, you know, she socialized a lot and she maybe went to parties, and she really wasn't a traditional mommy. And finally, the woman, I got something the mother was saying, he was a dog, you know, and the mother said, and the client said, yes, she did get me a dog, and that was a good memory. And she left realizing her mother could only live in her way, but it was the 1950s, 60s. She had to do the role of mother, not just be a career woman, and she didn't balance it. But she finally realized, you know, my mom did love me, and she did get me the puppy, you know. But then there's some case, oh my God, murders, and you can't imagine it. I'm glad this period is over, or the trend. I was getting so many teenagers as young as 12 who committed suicide by hanging. No pills or drugs, hanging. I had so many of those. I remember I wanted to take a break, and I was like, it was like, even now it gets, it's,
Oh,
that's a hard one.
horrible. That's just
But
horrible.
you know what somebody told
You're
me?
strong to get through that.
Yeah, it's a hard thing. That's why you like doing the parties and having fun, because you
Yeah, I
got to
was saying,
balance it.
joy, joy, joy. This is so much fun. And then then you say that.
Yeah, you have to, yeah, and you have to be there for people, because any child's death is like a horror, um, especially unexpected things. It's a hard. I do have a hard time with pet caregivers. They're more unconsolable than the parents. I hate to say it, but I actually stopped telling people I do the pets, because they would call me up at 1 o'clock in the morning. The cat died. Read it now, and I'm like, oh my god. And I'm like, um, there were no words to comfort. I asked people why, and they said, well, it's unconditional love and blah blah blah, and they could. The grief is very intense, and I'm reading a book, Sacred Send-Offs. I just got at the Awaken Fear. A lady was a vendor. She wrote the book. She's a, I will have the book right here. What did she call herself? An animal chaplain. She helps you with the grieving process, or what to do with, even wild animals. It was a beautiful thing. I was like, interesting book. And I did this interspecies animal communication. I think I just told you, right? I just told you it was in Canada.
Yeah.
Maybe I didn't. It was from a college.
You mentioned
Yeah, I
Canada.
did mention it. Yeah, the PhDs. Yeah. And the Native American Indians. Yeah. And they're very, um, some of that was tough. There was one lady, she kept crying. She was one of the speakers, because yes, we know it's terrible things we do to animals, but it was something where, even when I do the pets, there's a lot of comfort. The pets are like, oh, I'm with your father, and he's petting me and grooming. The pets are always with family of the people who took care of them. And I get joyful things, but she was making it like everything's so sad, anything about an animal passing. And I was like, she wouldn't stop crying.
Aw.
But yeah, I was
I think
sad.
what
But
you
I
do
had,
is it's beautiful what you do, Joan, because you comfort
oh,
and you have and and you present it in a way that is not, it's not as painful. I think it's not, you're sharing with them that when it's either a family member or a pet owner, when there's a passing, that they're going to a better place, they're at peace, they're, like you said, they're with their love, the family that loved them.
yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
I think that's
It's,
because
I'm sorry.
people,
Go ahead.
well, people, what I've, when I've been around those that have lost someone, and I kind of felt the other side, I've seen the other
Mm,
side,
mm,
and I've been in the presence of a few people who passed away, and I felt this lightness and this purity, and it's this sensation that's not like anything else, and
mm.
it's so peaceful. So I know that you have a connection and an understanding, and that's why you can do that. Not everyone could handle this, because it's not, it's in the realm of like darkness and sadness, and you have
Yeah.
such an uplifting personality that you you just are grounded, so you know how to kind of let it go.
I don't even know how. I think because I had some of my own issues that were painful, that I had to heal myself, and you just share your strength and your healing. I had an interesting thing I passed to my clients. This was from an older gentleman. He might have been around in his 80s. I went to a little thing in my town, had like something, a parade or something. This was years ago. Beautiful day. And he looked at me and he said, are you having a nice day or whatever? I said, yeah. And I was actually a little depressed. And he then started to say, he shared this. And I said, this is an incredible gift he just gave me. One son was murdered, and he had two sons, and one son committed suicide. And here he is in his 80s. And he said, and I know my sons didn't want me to live the rest of my life in grief. Wow. I just passed that on to one of my clients. I said, don't you know that your husband doesn't want, you could have another 30, 40 years here.
Mm.
They don't want you to suffer that you're trying to get to the grave with them and live that way. It was just amazing. It was just amazing because when you have that perspective, that they're not asking you to join them in the casket. Not in the old days, the old dramatic funerals, which I'm glad we don't do. I witnessed it once as a kid. And I was like, well, it is theatrics, but it was, wow, grown women saying they're orphans and they want to die in the casket. But anyway, we don't do that anymore.
Mm.
But it's very interesting. Like in the old days, if you were a widow at 30, you'd be in the veil, the black veil, and never getting married or going on a date for the rest of your life. I'm talking about the older days.
Mm.
So it's great that we can start living again. We still have these people in our heart. But
I think the loss that you have when someone passes, it's so extreme because you're going to miss the person,
mm-hmm.
and you don't want to be without their love or without them to love.
Yeah.
And I guess it's such a significant relationship or person that you've grown accustomed to that you just don't want it to be over.
Yeah.
And that's what I get. I mean, I've been very lucky in my life, and I both my father passed away, and I mean, I dreamt of my father for months and months. I guess it was actually more like years. For about 4 years, I dreamt of him because I didn't feel like we had closure on our relationship, and I was in a lot of pain about that. So I understand if someone passes, how much pain you feel, because I mean, it was such a loss for me because I was so close to my father. And I give you a lot of credit that you interact and you are, someone there for those who have lost someone. So let's move on to something happy.
Oh yes, it's
Let
just
me ask you, can you give us any recommendations for improving our intuition? Because
yeah,
you're a teacher.
yeah. The first thing is believe that you can. They actually did like a statistics, and when they tried it in a class of, if you say you can't do it, you're not going to do it. We always say meditate. Now, I think I meditate, but it's really me having a cup of coffee. It's really not meditating, but it is about that breathing in and breathing out and absence of thought, calming your mind down. And one of the things you could say is, what I do is I pass the crystals and we interchange. So you get someone else's crystal. It could even be an object, lipstick, pen, whatever you have. And you're feeling their vibrations. So you could say it because everyone's going to start feeling, oh, it's blue and it's cool. I don't want that. If you could, what letters do you see? Or what feeling do you have, or a message? You build it up. I had an interesting case, which is exactly about even some people say, all right. I said, what letters do you get? Oh, ABC. She went like that. And then I said, what numbers? 1, 2, 3. What color? Red. She said, you see, I got nothing. Absolutely nothing. And the lady whose crystal she had said, oh, yes, you got a lot. I just went to my sister's new home. Her address is 123, 123, or whatever the street is. It's a red door, and my sister's initials are ABC. You got everything.
Oh my
but
God.
She was so negative.
Yeah.
So you just have to be kind of loose. And also one of the big things about being a psychic is holding back. I remember one time I kept seeing Civil War, and I said, how could I say this to this guy? And I finally said, it doesn't mean anything to me, but what does the Civil War mean to you? He said, oh, I love it. I read books all the time about it. I try to collect things. So it means something to someone else. But to us, it's like, I don't have to know. I'm just relaying the message. And then, so we would start simple like that. And then, the letters. All right. This is how someone taught me how to be a medium. It was a waitress. One of the places I worked in, the cafe. She said, she said, do you ever do names? I said, no. She said, well, try a letter. I said, S for Steve. And she said, yes. And what's the message? She guided me. I had no idea. And I talked about love. And she said, that's very pertinent to me because Steve's in a coma, dying. And I'm crying because I never did this before. And he had a car accident. A couple of months later, I bumped into her and she said, I didn't want to tell you, but it was my son. And the message meant so much to me. I was shocked. I was just stunned because I think I started out 30 years ago. I didn't know any psychics who were medium. James Van Prague wasn't on TV yet. My aunt didn't do it. I was like, what? And then I felt free to give names in a message. So I went to a party and I said, oh, John has this message. And this guy looked at me, the host, and said, oh, and I know John's a common name. And he just said, oh my God, John just died. All I wanted was a message from him when you came tonight. And I wasn't billed as the medium. I was stunned because I just never encountered it. I didn't believe in it. I never experienced it. So I was more stunned than the clients. And sometimes you get an odd name. One time I was at a party, and this is a party, a fancy house and everything. And I say, this is an odd name, Angelique. And I'm like, I never heard of the name. And then the girl, young, beautiful girl, she's gasping for breath. And she starts to cry. I said, did you say Angelique? I said, yes. She goes, my best friend, she committed suicide last year. And I'm like, I have to change it into something light because I'll get kicked out. I was like, I can't have people crying at this to-do party, this. But I was stunned because when you get an odd name and when you get a weird way they died, but the main thing is you want to get fun things too, of course, like the evidential medium thing. So you want to get details of movements or gruff voice or something. Alzheimer's, I get a very peaceful, quiet thing. It's like, just quiet. And they don't have Alzheimer's or illnesses on the other side. They don't have those ailments. Don't think of them forever in those sickly diseases. That's nice. And I've heard people say,
have you seen the other side? Can you see the other side?
No, I don't. That's a great question. I bet you do.
I do see the other side. I do.
Wow.
I see a lot of different sides, actually. I've seen but anyway, but I mean, you know what? It's my experience, so my experience might be different than yours. That's why
but that's, boy, I'd be interested in hearing about that. But and people ask me about reincarnation. I say, these spirits, I'm at a situation where they don't talk to me about reincarnation. So I'm not going to give information on it. And I used to do hypnosis and I would do past lives, but I always would premise it. Maybe it's a past life. Maybe we're making a narrative to help you with this life. Yes, I know there are past life stories. I believe it, but I'm not going to guarantee in this hypnosis session it's that, because sometimes it's just this narrative, like writing a story, and the conclusions of healing people are amazing. Where some people prove it. Oh, I got the name and the address, whatever. A lot of them always tell me I'm going to school, and I always laugh. Kids who don't like school, oh God, you can't get rid of school. You can just keep going, and it's interesting. And I had an interesting case. A dear friend, he had a very abusive dad, and he was passed. The dad, and he's not the only spirit. I had another spirit say the same thing. Well, you're going to therapy. I'm going to therapy, and I'm healing. I'm sitting next to you with the therapist, and because they feel what they gave you. And sometimes people are we don't know the mental illnesses, psychology, or what the abuse they had. But I thought that was beautiful. Like he's healing, as he said, I would like to establish a relationship with the father that I can be instead of the father that I was. I was stunned, you know.
Yeah.
That, and some of it's, you know, you get great things. Some of it's like a sad thing I get. I don't want to talk too many sad things, but when women who they didn't formally get married, but they're married, they're together with the guy 30 years and he dies in his sleep. Joan, where's the will? He said he's going to take care of me. There's no will. And you're not even on the lease and they weren't working. So that's a tough thing. I always tell women, well, you better get the paperwork in order because you don't know. And they mean, you know, everyone wants to take care of you, but hey, I told an accountant friend told me that her friend, they both, a couple were 95 and they were estate planners. They died and they didn't have a will, but they did that for a living. Some people in denial about doing that paperwork, you know, and sometimes kids are great with on the death journey. I mean, not when they after they pass, it's like they feel like, oh, I'm like flying, and they see the fun of it. And of course, they miss the physical presence, and they know the pain of the loss. But they're amazing. They're like it's like being Superman. Like I'm flying, I can watch you on TV, and I'm playing, and it's just I see Grandpa, who I never met, but who I really know. Oh, that's going to bring me to another subject. My friend has a series of books that we all contribute chapters, Harmony and Chakras. And the new book, volume 3, which isn't published yet, is about children. So I wrote about just my own family of connecting to like grandparents. When I had pneumonia at age 2 and I was in a coma, I always remember, this is in the 1950s. So I remember my parents crying, being escorted out of the hospital room, and I see my grandfather come in and just sit with me. And then when I was about 4 or 5, I asked my mom, when did my grandfather die? And she said, a year before you were born. And I was like, what? Then he visited me in spirit, but it was such a strong vision I had. I always remembered that. And then I had 4th cousins who had visions with the grandparents. One with the dog was great during COVID. My one of the cousins, the vet came to the backyard and they euthanized the dog. The children were away. They were 4 years old or whatever, very young. And they buried the dog. And, you know, they said the dog passed and everything. But then a couple of weeks later, the little girl, very little, said, Mom, the dog's name was Colossus. He was a pretty big dog. Colossus wants to come in. So the mother wasn't going to yell at him and blah, blah. She said, well, where is it? And the kid pointed to where he was buried, and the kid does not know that. Okay. And then the mother just played along with it and said, okay, I'll open the door. And the little kid said, he's in now and he's good. And she drew a picture for school with the new dog and Colossus in spirit, like above them. And she felt that she could see the dog. It, you know, closes it up at age 5. You're not as psychic then. But I had a whole bunch of stories like that. And children are amazing. You know, they just in touch with it. Grandparents that you don't know about the children. I had one client when she said, does my father know that I adopted children? And the first thing he said was skating. And she went, oh, I just brought them roller skating today before I saw you. I said, you see, your father knows he was there with you. Now, some people could argue, Joan, maybe you just picked up her energy that she went roller skating. But to me, I was already had messages from the dad that I was relaying. So yeah, so some of them are heartwarming.
Those that say I'm being the devil's advocate.
Yeah, sure, it's good.
They're not believing anything that is possible beyond the physical reality. There can't, when our spirit is more powerful than any other part of us.
Oh, that's a beautiful sentence.
Speaking of spirit, so Spirituality Week is coming
Oh,
up.
yeah.
And you said you're going to be doing something for Spirituality Week. You said,
Yeah,
what is that?
it's interesting. Now, this is a brand new thing. One of the founders worked for the Open Center when they had the physical building in New York. Now, he started there, and then he was only there for years. Then a year later, we had COVID. It was shut down. They had it on the internet. And then the founder, this Open Center was in New York City for like 40 years, 50 years. So they were okay on the internet, but then it just dwindled out. And he said, we got to keep this going. And at the Casey Center doesn't have a physical lease. And the TRS suite where I used to rent a room, or the practitioners, they don't have the lease. So everybody, we've all been doing Zoom, but we missed that physical, let's get together, our tribe, holistic tribe and metaphysical. So they're doing Spirituality. They contacted me and they said, you can do a class. You provide where you're going to rent the room. And I had a place where I could rent a little room, and tell us submit, and we'll approve it if it's approved. So I'm going to be doing Live Intuitively. That's like a psychic development class. Some of it I explained about transmitting. I'm going to do that. This all starts in June.
Okay.
Wait, before June, Thursday, June 8th is when I do that from 1:30 to 3:30 in this city. Just go to spiritualityweek.org. It's New York City, Brooklyn, and maybe Queens.
Okay. I'll put it in the description.
Yeah. Oh, good for you. And then he's going to have a big party June, I think it's 2nd, which is a Friday. They're going to do a speech, him and his partner, and then we're having a big party at the Rubin Museum in New York, which I'm going to. And there's classes on yoga, and there's classes on even spirituality, romance, which is nice, because we got to get deeper. We're all brokenhearted with, we keep dating, we're like, we don't connect. So there's something where we need to connect more. So there's classes on that, Zen or the singing bowls, spiritualityweek.org from like June 2nd to 11th. And on June 11th, I will be doing a seance, celebrating life after death with spirit contact. And that's from, I think, 2 o'clock to 5. And on Tuesdays, I'm promoting that. I'm doing my discount mini readings at Om Shanti. So it's best to go. Amy will kindly put it up. She's
Mary.
Oh, no, I forget because Mary Amy. Yeah. And
Okay.
I was almost going to say the last name's Amy because you didn't think of it as a first name. Mary Amy will kindly put it up. And I think that's great. Yeah. So, and I was telling a lot of people, this is great. He wants to do it all over. He's going to do it in LA, and he wants to do a lot of these in different cities, but he wants to focus on New York because we had a strong community. We still do. And I even told him, hey, you could do something at the Wainwright House. Maybe next time you could do a retreat or something. And I said, I'll help you. It's all different people than when I was working there, but I turned him on to it. And I said, not this time, but later on, put it in the back of your mind. And there's so many great classes, and some of them are free. So I'm just paying mine at $50, but that's going to help me pay the rent for the room, and I'm just limiting it to 10 people because I don't know how many are going to come, so I can't say I have a room for 30 and 5 show up. So, but and then I'm going to be at the Balance Art Center, and that's a great center in itself because they teach the Alexander technique, and you're allowed to rent the room there.
I love that you are really immersed in this whole I guess this whole, what would I say, career of being a psychic, and it's not just a little bit. You are involved with in your community, and you're doing you're teaching, and you're also, seems like you're constantly learning more and more, like you're a sponge, and whether you realize it or not, you have so many gifts. I mean, to you, it's like you're just throwing it off, and it's big stuff. What you can do is very advanced. I mean, I've been around a lot of psychics and mediums and channelers, and And I have to tell you, Joan, that you have so many different gifts in like a variety of different areas, and you've really integrated it so well with yourself. I'm really impressed by you.
You know, it's funny that you say that, because when I was younger, oh my God, it was so hard. I was in and out of work. I was fired so many times, and it was such a nightmare of, and the things I wanted to do, I couldn't do for a living. And I was like, God, how am I going to get everybody? Was Joan, you're always unemployed. I was like, you don't know, this touched my heart, what you said, because it was a struggle to get that gift. Let me tell you, to be able to say, hey, I'm 70, but I can do readings on the deathbed. I'm not going to retire. I'm enjoying it. I'm getting invited to parties, and I meet all these wonderful people. I mean, and you learn from people. Everybody has a story. Even if someone says, I'm the most boring person in the world, I go, you have a story. Even what made you boring is a story. But it's like amazing. And I think because I was so withdrawn, just to be able to like, one meeting, you know, all of these people, and or now with the young kids. Oh, I had a funny thing. What was it? I had two funny jobs. One was, maybe you saw the pictures on Facebook. It was a job for the 11-year-old girls doing a theme. The party's theme was Legally Blonde. Of course, I called myself Legally Gray. And I actually had an outfit, a dress that I never wore, and a little pocketbook. And I said, I never wore this thing, because it's hard to wear a dress because the stockings and whatever. But I said, this is the perfect dress. So I was Legally Gray. And then I did a party. This was wild. It was raining in New York. This is months ago. It's cold. It's wet. And I look at the address and I go, what was it? Pull that out. I forgot what the name of the club. It kept saying, I said, all I see is a church on this block. There's no way this place is here. And I'm looking, I'm calling, nobody answers. And I said, let me look at the original thing of what this dating thing was called. I can't remember the name. So I see a man standing out in this little like extra door space that's connected to the church. I said, excuse me, where's the blah, blah, blah club? And they said, right in here. So I'm entering part of the church that became like this bar disco place. And they said, you're going to be reading here in the confessional. I was like,
oh my God.
Isn't that great? I said, no, I'm Catholic. That's scary to me. I was like, oh my God. You know, yeah, I did it. And I was like, Catholic guilt, but it was a Jewish dating site in a Catholic church that became a club.
That's strange, right?
So it was far out. And what was fun was I got a group of the singles together, and I would say, we'll do all the birthday numbers as a numerologist, and we'll see who's good for each other or who's opposite. Oh, he's got that 4 structure, order, or detail, but you got that 5 and 3. You love your freedom and spontaneity. That's what you need to teach that person, because they're too stuck in a rut, but they get a lot done. And he needs to get you more on target and scheduled, because you're not. So it was kind of funny of being a matchmaker with the numerology, you know. And so that was cute. That was cute. And sometimes you just go, it's fun with you know, to be around the young people is good. Now that I'm getting older, I feel young, but with the aches and pains, you don't.
This is why you have a 30-year career being a psychic medium, because you just keep moving and changing and flowing. Before we go, I have a couple, I have one question, then I would like you to tell us how you can be reached and all, and your services. When you receive information, it seems so natural. What exactly happens? Are you seeing something? Are you hearing something? What, like, if you could describe it to someone, what's going on for you? How do you receive it?
It's not like the movies, like ghosts. I don't see the whole physical form. I may feel like, oh, I feel a little, not a pinch, but something where I feel energy here, heart, lungs, they had a problem there. Yes, they had that. And then I'll go deeper of what it is. Oh, it was lung and it was lung cancer or whatever. Then I could hear, and sometimes I hear the tone of the voice. He's got a low, raspy smoker's voice. Or sometimes I get the smokers, and then sometimes
So they
that
make
body
contact
movement.
with you. That you're saying those that have passed make contact with you directly, and that's how you get the
Oh
information.
yeah.
Do they
Oh,
talk?
you know.
Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
they do, to a clairaudient. Yeah. Sometimes you hear it. But first I never went fishing in my life, but I say it's like fishing. You cast in the line and I gotta reel it in. And when I see a picture and they say, yeah, then I feel like I'm squinting to look for more details. But when
Got it.
they say, no, 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 I say, listen, let me push that person aside or that picture because you don't want it. Sometimes that picture comes back and I said, listen, they really want that. And then one time I said, ask your mother. And she said, Joan, that was my mother's relative that I never knew about, an older person that, that's a good question. Do they contact me? Yeah. And I always invite them. And I see, for me, I get a symbol like a hand with yellow roses.
Mm.
And I go, and that's saying greetings from the other side. We're here. But it's not like I see like your father, like from head to toe sitting with you.
Mm.
Did your father? All right, there's a man here. Anybody connects to the boats or the Navy?
My dad. My dad was obsessed with boats. Well, he was a sailor on the weekends.
Oh, great. Wow, 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 wow. Yeah, yeah. Because that was his bliss. And he knew a lot about it. He really knew the nautical he knew a lot. He wasn't just he threw himself into knowledge about it.
Mhm.
And you could trust him as, steering it and things like that. And yeah, wow. And he also, was he a businessman? Business? Yeah. And he was good at that too. So he could be grounded. But he says it was nice to have the two worlds. And he enjoyed bringing the family on the boat because you have to, and it was relaxed. I'm not in a business suit. I'm just being with the elements of the earth, Mother Earth. And he does say you have a desire with the environment to help the environment. Is that so?
Yes.
Yeah, he said that's important because you even bring the peace, like even to the birds or whatever. I get the impression you send them peace and love because he knows you're doing that. And he says, oh, he loved his family and he wishes he had more time. He has time in the other, dimension, but just you have a brother?
Yes.
Yeah. So you said there's more than one child that he had. And but your mother's still here?
Yes.
Yeah. And you're doing well with taking care of her. And she was always a beautiful dresser, stylish.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, he had like his daughter, he had a beautiful wife. And he said, there were hard times like everybody, but we kept growing. He has a beautiful philosophy. He said he knew what love was and he kept it growing. I mean, I don't know how to describe it. He fell in love, but he kept this, yes, parents fight, we know that, but the love kept growing and growing, that even in death, your mother feels his love and you feel his love because he exponentially, it keeps growing. It's massive. And he knows, I think he knows he has grandchildren. Your daughter, very talented woman, young lady, and your brothers have children. Yes, I shouldn't say it's children on your brother. Their brother has children. You have nieces and nephews, and he has other grandchildren. So he says, my love keeps growing. And from these grandchildren, there'll be great grandchildren. And you're going to be having an impact on, just do it spiritually, the environment. I just feel you're very connected. And you haven't been on a boat for a long time.
No, I love boats too. I grew up, we had to take sailing class. And that's one of my goals, is to have a boat. So
or even rent a boat.
Yeah, I wanted my own boat. One of my
All
goals.
right.
I have many goals, and that's one of them, is having a boat, because I love boats. And I guess, yeah, he's definitely still touching my heart. And I don't have the sadness. I think you reminding me of elements of him and my relationship with my father is actually it's positive. It's healing by you saying this, and I appreciate
Oh, it's beautiful.
I
Yeah.
appreciate you, Joan, and you are a gift because you have so much heart within you, and you're very sweet and emotional, and it's not harsh in any way. Like and I know you, that's why you're good at what you do, because you know how to communicate. Like you're communicating and you're communicating. You're
Oh,
communicating
ooh,
with
that's
those
interesting. I never
past,
thought of it that
and then
way.
you're communicating with us. So I'm so grateful. So before we go, because now I mean,
Oh, yeah.
given us so much tonight, and I'm so grateful to you, and I appreciate it, and thank you so much. I have gratitude for you. Where can you be reached, and what services you mentioned you're teaching, and what other services do you offer?
Well, I do phone readings and in-person readings, psychicjoan@yahoo.com.
Okay.
I mainly the email because I can't take all the robocalls. psychicjoan@yahoo.com.
Okay.
Website, Psychic Joan Carra, CARRA.net.
Okay.
And or spiritualityweek.org. You'll get an intro.
Okay.
Oh, next week I'm going to be at the Strawberry Moon June Psychic Fair in White Plains.
Okay, we'll put that in there too. So you're going to send me that info. You're going to remind me when we get off. We'll text each other, and I'll put it in the description. And is there anything you would like to share with the viewers before we go?
Well, I think Mary did a wonderful professional job. She's so sweet, and she has good insights. I learned a lot from her just by her interviewing me. It was amazing.
I love you, Joan. You're a sweetie pie. Thank you so much. And I have to tell you, since I saw you a few years ago, and we had lunch together.
Yeah.
I say that whatever something changed, I can tell something shifted within you. It seems like you're more open. I don't know if something passed through you, or you overcame something, but you definitely are more open. You to me, you felt more constricted. Just letting you know.
Oh, yeah, I can understand why that. Yeah.
Yeah, I
It
get
was something I was going through, and I was a little cautious, or
right. You were, compared to now. I mean, you're just like, whoa, which is good. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much.
All right, I thank you.
And you have,
And I'm gonna email you because the text, I don't know if you have my cell number, but I'm not. I'll email you or my info. Okay.
no worries. Thanks,
All
Joan.
right, you're in love. Thank you so much.
Bye.